Dublin Evening Mail, Monday, April 17th, 1843. Battle with a herd of walruses. From Captain Buchan's voyage to the North Pole, the boats, properly equipped and manned with some of the officers and seamen, pushed off. The first herd which was selected disappointed the sportsmen, but another was so intent on its gambols that, notwithstanding the extreme vigilance I have noticed, several of the crew managed to effect a landing upon the ice without any alarm being given to the animals. But immediately, on the first musket being fired, the affrighted group made such a desperate rush towards the edge of the ice, they nearly overturned the whole of our party, purposely stationed there to intercept them. The seamen, finding this charge more formidable than they expected, were obliged to separate, to allow their opponents to pass through their ranks, and being thus in their turn taken by surprise, they suffered them almost unmolested to perform their somersets towards the sea. What with their uncertain movements, the extreme toughness of their skin, and the respectful distance at which the men were obliged to keep, to avoid the lashing of the head and tusks of the animals. It was indeed no easy task to inflict any serious injury upon them. One, however, was desperately wounded in the head with a ball, and the mate of the brig, being determined, if possible, to secure his prey, resolutely struck his tomahawk into his skull. But the enraged animal, with a twist of its head, sent the weapon whirling in the air, and then, lashing his neck as though he would destroy with his immense tusks everything that came in his way, effected his escape to the water. The seamen followed and pushed off in their boats. But the walruses, finding themselves more at home now than on the ice, in their turn became the assailants, and the affair began to assume a serious aspect. They rose in great numbers about the boats, snorting with rage and rushing at the boats, and it was with the utmost difficulty they were prevented from upsetting or staving them by placing their tusks upon the gunwales or striking at them with their heads. It was the opinion of our people that in this assault the walruses were led on by one animal in particular, a much larger and more formidable beast than any of the others, and they directed their effort more particularly towards him. But he withstood all the blows of their tomahawks without flinching, and his tough hide resisted the entry of the whale lances, which were unfortunately not very sharp and soon bent double. The herd was so numerous, and their attacks so incessant, that there was not time to load a musket, which indeed was the only effectual mode of seriously injuring them. The purser fortunately had his gun loaded, and the whole now being nearly exhausted with chopping and sticking at their assailants, he snatched it up, and thrusting the muzzle down the throat of the leader, fired into his bowels. The wound proved mortal, and the animal fell back amongst his companions, who immediately desisted from the attack, assembled round him, and in a moment quitted the boat, swimming away as hard as they could, with their leader, whom they actually bore up with their tusks, and assiduously preserved from sinking. Whether this singular and compassionate conduct, which in all probability was done to prevent suffocation, arose from the sagacity of the animals, it is difficult to say, but there is every probability of it, and the fact must form an interesting trait in the history of the habits of the species. After discharge of the purser's gun, there remained, of all the herd, only one little assailant, which the seamen, out of compassion, were unwilling to molest. This young animal had been observed fighting by the side of the leader, and from the protection which was afforded it by its courageous patron, was imagined to be one of its young. The little animal had no tusks, but it swam violently against the boat, and struck her with its head, and indeed would have stove her, had it not been kept off by whale lances, some of which made deep incisions in its young sides. These, however, had not any immediate effect. The attack was continued, and the enraged little animal, though disfigured with wounds, even crawled upon the ice in pursuit of the seamen, who had re-landed there, until one of them, out of compassion, put an end to its sufferings. So sad. I have never seen loyalty like that, at least not in men.